Well, we're in the room with former police commissioner, Bill Bratton, the only person to serve as police commissioner of the two largest cities in the United States, New York City and LA. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you.
It's great to be with you.
Yes. So tell everyone a little bit of background about what got you into policing. Let's just give a little bit of background on that.
Background that always wanted to be a policeman, to be a cop. I lived 3 blocks from a police station when I was growing up in Boston, Dorchester neighborhood. Very influenced by television of the 1950s when I was a young boy. A lot of the shows back in that era were Dragnet, Bad 714, Barney Miller, One Adam 12. And so the influence on me was largely television, plus that police station just being 3 blocks from where I lived. Nobody in my family has been or is likely to be a member of the police profession, with the exception of myself.
Okay. So you got into it in Boston initially.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And then I know you
tell by a little bit by the accent that's still there.
Yeah? What are some key Boston words? Let's test you out with your accent.
Well, park the car in Harvard Yard. Everybody thinks it's an emphasis on the letter R, but it's actually the letters A-H, R-A-H.
Uh-huh. Do you say wicked a lot?
No, that's your generation, not mine.
I thought that was a Boston thing.
I think that's been played up by a number of the comedians on television. Okay. But actually, wicked, I don't think that's a Boston term,
okay.
At least in my neighborhood.
Okay. All right, so you did Boston. I know you spent some time abroad also, and then you came. What brought you to New York City?
New York City was always anybody that's interested in policing, it's the iconic police department in America. In England, it's the Metropolitan Police in London. In America, there's actually 2. There's the Los Angeles Police Department and New York. Both of them portrayed on TV and movies, and along with the Met in London, the 3 most iconic police departments in the world. I have the great fortune to have headed up 2 of them. Came that close to getting London, but I was not a British citizen. And at that time, when there was an opportunity, you had to be a member of the, you had to be a Brit. And they've since changed that law. But so I missed out on the trifecta.
Okay. But you still left quite the legacy on these places where you have been, Commissioner.
New York and LA, certainly that been able, along with the teams that I've been able to assemble around me, we had profound effects on their safety, their quality of life, the crime. In England, did a lot of collaborating with the British police services. For that, I was actually honored by Queen Elizabeth with you can't be given a knighthood if you're not a British citizen, but they have a series of other designations. So I have a CBE, a Commander of the British Empire. And so I basically, when you see all those letters after an English person's name, CBE is, that's one step down from being knighted. So I feel very privileged about that one because it was an acknowledgement of all the work I did trying to collaborate, learn from, and to teach the British police services.
Wow. So have you been back over there with this CBE?
Yeah, it doesn't help me get good restaurant reservations, but it has a wonderful medal that they present to you and give to you. And in British circles, social circles, it has a significance.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty cool. What about with airport security? Does it help with that?
I'm sorry?
With airport security, does it help with that? Travel?
No. Actually, airport security, U.S. in particular, but TSA, clear, moving through security. I have to go through the same thing that everybody else does. But fortunately, that's been facilitated now with those programs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have these accolades from across the country and the world overseas, and you come to New York City. Now, paint a picture for us. I know you were commissioner here in New York City 2 times. When you first were commissioner, what was New York City like? What year was that? Mm-hmm. Walk us through what the climate was.
I first came to New York in 1990. I had a 20-year career in Boston, where I had moved up through the ranks of the Boston Police Department, then headed up 2 other state police agencies in that state. But I was given the opportunity to come to New York in 1990 to take over the transit police. In New York City in 1990, there was 3 separate New York police departments: transit, housing. 600,000 people in New York live in public housing, and then the very fabled NYPD. The transit police back in 1990 had 3,800 officers. It was actually the 10th largest police department in America in the subways. Subways in New York were a nightmare in the late 80s, 90s. Crime, disorder, fare evasion, a couple of thousand homeless people living in the subway. And it was a terrible place for the 3.5, 4 million people that voted every day. The city above was not much better, but subways, because you're below ground, are more threatening. And so I came to New York with a strong belief that to deal with public safety, to deal with the perception of it, the reality of it, you had to focus on 2 things: crime, serious crime, the murders, the rapes, the robberies, but you also had to focus on the minor crimes, the so-called broken windows, the quality of life. And why was that important? Well, even in New York City, with 500,000 serious crimes every year in 1990, 2,200, 73 murders, 100,000 robberies, 110,000 car thefts, tens of thousands of rapes. With 8 million people in the city, most people were not the victims of a serious crime, but all of us were victimized every day by what we saw every day on the streets and the subways: the graffiti, the prostitution, the drug dealing, the disorder. And that had a tremendous effect on people's feeling of safety. Same thing today, 35 years later, that so much of the concern in New York is less about serious crime, which still leads the nightly news or the newspapers, but it's what they see every day. And right now, New York is still having a major problem with quality of life, so-called broken windows crime. The current commissioner, Jesse Tisch, is doing a great job focusing on understanding the need to focus on serious crime, which is down dramatically. But she also has these so-called quality of life team, these Q teams that are focusing on quality of life. Because the bulk of the calls that come into the police aren't about the murders, the rapes, the robberies. It's about all those other things that people see, and they want the police to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, that was the picture of back then, you said in the late 80s, early 90s, and you were police commissioner.
Police chief of transit.
Chief of transit, right, with those 3 different police entities within the department.
One of the motivations to come to New York was maybe I'd get noticed enough to maybe be considered to become police commissioner of New York City. As far-fetched as that sounded, the kid coming from Boston, but it worked. In some respects, transit was like an off-Broadway hit that I got noticed, particularly by Giuliani, who ran for mayor in '93 and hired me as his first police commissioner, with the request, can you do the same thing in the streets that you did in the subway, focus on crime and disorder? I said, certainly. And I told him I'd get crime down, serious crime for you by 40% in 3 years. Mm-hmm. And when I left 27 months later, it was down by 39%. So the formula is, for any city, any community, you have to focus on both crime, which scares the hell out of people but has very serious victims, but disorder, which creates the perception of crime and elevates the fear.
Right. And even though the statistics and data of crime stats are lower now, you said 35 years later, there still is that perception of disorder, chaos that makes people feel unsafe, even though the data may show that crime is down.
Ironically, while those crime numbers are going down, they're still not where they were back in 2018, 2019, when in this state, and in many other states around the country, we had an initiative called criminal justice reform. In New York, it was around the issue of bail reform, raise the age where instead of being able to deal with a youth crime issue at age 16, that they had to be age 18, which has caused phenomenal problems the last couple of years. So that we still have not returned to what were New York's safest years in its history, which would be 2016, 17, and 18. Those 3 years, ironically, under Bill de Blasio, who has been much chastised for all of his progressive leanings. In his second term, the place really went to pot, literally went to pot with all the marijuana that you have in the city now. But the good news is that with the current commissioner, current mayor, that Adams, with all of his issues, is still focused on trying to do something about crime and disorder, and they're having some success with it.
Now, what do you think overall between the data, the crime, the disorder, the feeling? Like, what is your feeling now looking back on New York City, knowing that you were here as commissioner? Like, what is your feeling about how New York City is going in terms of crime from a policing standpoint?
It's a great question because it does come down to individual feelings. The way I might feel about it, I spent my life in law enforcement. I'm probably more sensitive to a lot of it than most people. And where New York is not where it was back in 2017, 18, but where it's going, it has that potential. There's a great deal of concern about the upcoming mayoral election in this city, about Mr. Mondami and Adams and Cuomo, who'd be the best mayor to deal with crime and disorder. But my feeling is that I'm comfortable with what the police department, the new police commissioner, Jesse Tisch, is trying to do, but there's more to be done.
Like what? Because I know I'm stuck on the fact that
let me give you some examples.
Yeah.
One, more police. The department, I had 38,000 police officers back in the 1990s. The department actually went up to 41,000 just before 9/11. Jessie right now has about 33,500. So she needs several thousand more officers to be able to do all that she would like to do. And that would also increase significantly the visibility of the police. The department has a very low morale situation right now because of some of the scandals of some of the previous police commissioners. But it's in a good place to move forward. So I'm feeling good about that. But the upcoming mayoral election will have, I think, a profound impact one way or the other on going forward. But it really does come down to individual feelings. You as a young woman living in New York, how do you feel about riding the subway at 11, 12 o'clock at night?
I don't take the subway late at night, and I rarely even take the subway during the day. The last time I did take the subway, there was someone carrying a bunch of needles in his hand, and I got scared that what if he fell into me and stabbed me by accident?
So, and that was a quality of life crime that made you so fearful. My wife hasn't been on the subway in years. And it actually is no longer comfortable even walking the streets. And we lived over in the Upper East Side in one of the better precincts, 17th and 19th precinct area. So it really does come down to individual reality, if you've been the victim of a serious crime, or perception if you see around you things that are making you fearful.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the reasons why I have you here is really to talk about Times Square. New York City is the center of the universe, the center of the world, and Times Square is the center of that center. It's really the nucleus of power, of prosperity, and all eyes are on New York City, not just because we have this mayoral election coming up, what's going to happen with that, but it's really this major project could be coming to Times Square, Caesar's Palace Times Square, of which you are a partner in that and have prepared an $80 million private public safety plan. So I want to know about that and how that could play out along with working with government and community partners and why we might need a public safety plan in Times Square with this project.
Let's talk a little bit about that. SL Green, which is the largest commercial real estate firm in the city. They have over 40 of the major office buildings. They are one of my clients, and they had hired us to help them with security in their buildings. And in the effort to place a casino into one of their buildings in Times Square, they've asked for our assistance in designing a public safety plan that will allow them to collaborate much more closely with all the various entities in the Times Square area, the residents, the people who work there, the show business people, the theaters. And so for the last several years now, we have been working very closely with them on that public safety plan, which has been is in the process through this broadcast being made much more available to the public as far as what they're intending to do. Times Square likes to think of itself as the crossroads of the world, and it is. It is. There is no place like Times Square.
Right.
In good days and bad days, good old days or bad old days. It's also known as the bow tie district because that crossroad of the world resembles a bow tie when you look at it. So what SL Green is proposing is to have a very large security zone that technically encompasses all of what you think of that bow tie Times Square. And what they're promising to do is, if they were to win this casino project, to place a casino in their building that they already own in Times Square. The public probably knows that building because the Lion King play that's been there for 20 some odd years is in that building currently. And when that building is modernized with the casino, they will modernize that theater. That they are proposing to focus on the issue of public safety, because they understand to attract people to that casino, to attract people to the Lion King, to attract people to Times Square, they need to make it even safer than it is currently. And it is certainly a lot safer now than when I first got here in 1990. But it still has its issues, some significant real crime, a lot of perception of crime, the homeless, some of the narcotics dealing, some of the peddling situations, some of the cast of characters that are roaming through the square. But it is still one of the safest places in New York City. One of the reasons why is there's a lot of cops there. It has a lot of private security there, the Times Square Alliance security offices. What S.L. Green is proposing to do with their public safety initiative is increase that significantly. On an average day under this plan that they'll spend $80 to $100 million on, if that casino is approved, they will have approximately 40 additional security personnel, private and off-duty NYPD personnel in this security area. The security area encompasses 3 zones that are all connected and cover the whole area. They're going to install hundreds of additional cameras. Those cameras will be located in terms of being able to be observed in a command center that they will build, and they're still determining where that site will be. And that will be shared and coordinated with the New York City Police Department, Times Square Alliance, modeled after one that we have down in the Wall Street area, where there's a camera initiative that was set up after 9/11. So you've got, it's kind of like planning a wedding. You get something old, a coordinated camera command center, something old, something new, 40 new additional security people there, plus all those cameras. Something blue, a lot more security personnel. So in some respects, I feel like a wedding planner in that regard.
I think something borrowed has to be tied in there as well.
What we're actually borrowing is from the legacy, the lessons learned. In my case, when I first came to New York in 1990, my first priority for the transit system was Times Square. Why? Because all the lines go through there. And that's one of the attractions of it, that everything in New York connects through Times Square. So there's the the idea of borrowing from what worked, what didn't work. And it is like a wedding that, well, maybe when this happens, we'll put a big wedding cake up in Times Square and pass
the
out.
ball drop with the wedding cake.
Yeah,
and everyone gets
actually,
to eat the cake.
that's a good idea. That might be the way to light the candles when the ball hits.
So even when you sit down to write this plan, what does that mean? I know you joke that it seems like you're planning a wedding, but what does that mean? How do you know how to create an $80 million public safety plan with 3 zones?
In my case, I've been doing it for over 50 years and quite successfully. I think most people would agree. The turnaround of crime in New York subways first, then in the streets of New York. And that turnaround lasted for 25 years with crime going down every year to the lowest point in history. They're using the same model, Jesse Tisch, that we used back then. Los Angeles, during my time there, we reduced crime and gang crime very significantly. I have worked in countries around the world. I have worked in many cities in New York, in the United States, advising them on public safety plans. For over 10 years, I was the vice chair of the Homeland Security Advisory Council, working for the Secretary of Homeland Security on national issues relative to security of the homeland. So I think I've got a lot of experiences, skill set, and a lot of people that I've met along the way, many of whom have worked with me on developing this plan. That I'm pretty good at what I do, but one of the things I'm very good at is surrounding myself with a lot of people who are a lot smarter than I am about a lot of things that are important to have in putting the public safety plan together. Technology, collaboration with the various communities. How do you market it? that you and I are sitting here talking about this. This is part of the marketing effort. How do you get the word out? Well, go to people like yourself, influencers who have an audience, and basically pitch to those audiences.
Right, and make them feel comfortable about it.
And make them feel comfortable
Like,
about
are there any people out there that think, oh, this casino is coming to town and now we're going to have all these additional cops and it's all privately funded and like, what the hell is going on?
Well, there's the pluses and the minuses. The pluses are $80 to $100 million investment in public safety, let alone the money that's going to be used to renovate this building. That building, the design of it is absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous. And it'll be a significant contribution to the look of Times Square. It's not just more security personnel, it's cleaners, guys sweeping up the streets, traffic agents to help on the traffic flow, and those cameras, and all types of public assistance that those security officers will all be trained to give guidance to the tourists. 65 million people a year come to New York as tourists. Almost 60 million of them come through Times Square at some point in time while they're here. So this is a phenomenal add-on to the attraction of Times Square. But it has its detractors. The theater owners, many of them, are concerned that it's somehow going to bring an element that's not going to be appealing to their theater goers. I'm sorry, I've had a lot of experience with casinos in Las Vegas, even the one up here in Yonkers. In Las Vegas, we did security work for Caesars. We're currently doing work for one of the major casinos down there currently on public safety. In doing that work, you learn about who comes to casinos, why do they come. And I think the theater owners here really don't fully appreciate that this will be a benefit to them. And why do I feel that? Because the restaurant owners certainly feel that the many thousands of additional diners that will be coming here, there's only going to be several restaurants in this complex. Mm-hmm. If you want to eat out, you're going to have to go out.
Right.
You're going to have to go into Times Square.
Right.
And when you go to Times Square, you're not going to spend your whole time in the casino, the hotel. You're going to go to what tourists do now. You're going to go to the theaters. You're going to go to the shows that are always going on in Times Square. Best show in the world is standing in Times Square and just watching the crowd walk by.
Right. Right.
Talk about the greatest show in the world. It's right there.
That reminds me of a story. I saw Keith Urban once in the middle of Times Square. You know the singer Keith
Yes,
Urban,
I do.
who's married to Nicole Kidman, and he had his tattoos like coming out of his neckline of his shirt. Like I knew it was him, and he was holding his two young girls in the middle of Times Square in the middle of a weekday. And my face, I was closer to him right than I am to you, and I looked at him like as if I was going to react, and he just like winked at me and nodded, like as if you scream my name right
woman,
now.
so I'm sure you get a lot of winks.
But no, I felt it meant to me that if I like revealed, like blew his cover, he's in the middle of Times Square. He could have been attacked by a million people.
I'll give you another example of that. My wife and I were driving to the theater, and traffic was tied up to a fairly well in Times Square. And we were starting to run a little late to get to that theater. And it turned out that Brad Pitt was in the middle of Times Square. And basically, all of the people in Times Square knew that Brad Pitt was there in front of one of the theaters, and they were all there. And he was interacting with them. So in Times Square, you just never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
I had the opportunity when I was police commissioner, one of the New Year's events, the ball dropping, to meet Taylor Swift, that she was putting on the Times Square show on New Year's Eve. And so I had the opportunity to meet her. So I know exactly what you're talking about, that there's no place, with the exception of Los Angeles, where there's a potential for star sightings.
Star
like
sightings.
New York. Yeah, there's that Boston accent.
Okay, so in your honest opinion.
I will give you nothing but honest opinions.
So if this casino comes to town, there are people out there that think this will make Times Square worse than what it is today. You mentioned open drug use. Like, will it bring prostitution? Will it bring more crime? Will it bring a seedy neighborhood? And you put together this public safety plan to sort of proactively address people's concerns. Do you think this makes sense for Times Square? It
does, because it will bring none of that. And if they attempt to bring it, there'll be resources there existing, NYPD, Times Square Alliance, plus this additional reinforcement of dealing with cleanliness, dealing with traffic flow, dealing with the perception and reality of crime. That Times Square still has, unfortunately, some significant crime incidents from time to time, but on an average day, it has almost none. That in the area that we're talking about, where SL Green is located, there's been, since the beginning of the year, a minimum amount of serious crime there. Have there been some incidents? Yes. Get a lot of news attention, but it's not necessarily an everyday thing. So we learn from the past to plan for the future. And we're learning from my 50-year history, a lot of it, 30 some odd years around New York City. We know what we're doing. We know how to deal with it. And the experience that we had working with Caesars, doing security for all of their casinos in Las Vegas. And Caesars is one of the major partners of this initiative. My company's currently working with another major casino operation in Las Vegas. And I've got a lot of experience planning. Hudson Yard, we were very involved in helping to plan a lot of the security for that complex as it was building up. And planning for security is anticipatory. You try to anticipate when this project is done, what's it going to look like, what's going to be happening. Mm-hmm. And we spend a lot of time doing that. And a lot of that anticipation is based on past experience.
Now, you mentioned like another casino project, and you're familiar with the whole city. Do you think Times Square is the best location for a casino out of all the bids out there?
I do. One of the reasons that we agreed to work with SL Green on this project was because of our earlier multi-year relationship with them building their new headquarters right beside Grand Central Terminal. And one of the things I was excited about was prior to their buying that land and putting up their gorgeous building beside Grand Central Terminal, that block was a nightmare. As police commissioner, I came back in 2014, did a walk around of the building that was located there. Over 40 homeless living around that building, right next to this central part of New York City, a block from Bryant Park, 2 blocks from Fifth Avenue, and you had this nightmare. And we helped SL Green plan so that walkway between Grand Central and their building, right now, it's gorgeous there. You can, as a woman alone walking through there any hour of the day and night, you can feel comfortable because you feel safe. So this idea of is Times Square a great place to put a casino? Yes, based on previous experience working with SL Green and how they look at trying to make an area safer. But it also has everything. It has convenience of public transportation. Every one of the subway lines basically connects through there. Mm-hmm. You have access to New Jersey in terms of people coming over from New Jersey for the theater, for work. You have access to Long Island. It is really the crossroad of New York City, crossroad of New York State, crossroad of New York State, New Jersey, and Connecticut, crossroad of the world.
Mm-hmm. And from a public safety standpoint?
From a public safety standpoint, but from a commercial standpoint, why do so many businesses want to locate there? Why? We've got hundreds of thousands of people every day, tourists, people are working there. Tell you a story. Back in the early 90s when I was police commissioner the first time, Times Square was just starting to rejuvenate itself. Walt Disney was opening up the theater on 42nd Street. And John Mack, who was the head of one of the major investment firms down on Wall Street, moved his headquarters to a building in Times Square. And it was thought to be a white elephant, that why would you want to move from Wall Street up to Times Square? And he understood that Times Square was coming back, was going to be quite the place. And he was very prescient because they sold that building a number of years later, made a fortune because it became prime real estate once again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm just thinking about, I know what you mean. We invest in these areas and they become beautiful and you got to trust the process. But there are people out there who are concerned about the looks of the city, an incoming mayor who may want to get rid of a lot more police officers, and this casino coming to town in the middle of it all. And what do you say to those people who have these
for
concerns?
Example, that if the NYPD were to not grow in size but be reduced in size, here you have a significant addition to public safety with what SL Green is planning to invest. Understanding that what is being designed now is subject to potential change based on circumstances, that if they need more, they have built in that capability to expand more. And it is the idea that New York City is constantly about growth. When I first came here in 1990, there was 7.5 million people living in New York City. It's close to 9 million now. Why is that? Because the city continued to boom. And look at Times Square itself in terms of all the office buildings. Bank of America has its headquarters right there. You got a few blocks away, you got the Hudson Yard developments. It is a city of growth and Broadway theater is not going away. The attractive of Times Square for so many special events in Times Square, dropping of the ball on New Year's Eve. Look at all the different public events that are filmed in and done in Times Square every week. Phenomenal.
Okay. So I know we're going to walk around Times Square and you're going to point out what changes will be. But just so everyone knows, an $80 million security plan, what does that look like if you were to talk about it on the ground? What physical changes will people be able to see right away?
What they will see is a clean area, because in addition to those security personnel, there'll be the additional cleaners. They will see better lighting at night, although Times Square is pretty bright as it is. But one of the issues is better lighting in the area, because it benefits the camera systems they're going to be putting in to have better lighting. And as the technology is changing over time with artificial intelligence, with all the new capabilities of digital cyber, SL Green is basically creating a foundation that can capitalize on all of those technologies growing and expanding. And let's face it, owning 40 some odd buildings in this city, they're here to stay. They're not somebody that's here, they're going to move out. They're not going anywhere. They've got too much invested here. And they're looking for this to be in that crown of important buildings in the city, to have it as one of their most important crown jewels. And, I can't imagine them letting them see that thing get tarnished.
Right. So it's the safety, it's the security, it's the personnel,
it's cleanliness,
the technology.
It's a generation of, in policing we have an expression called force multiplier, where you try to, with collaboration, expand the benefit of us working with the FBI, the ATF, the state police agencies. In the commercial world, it's the idea of you benefit with your investment because then others want to invest in the area, new restaurants, higher end stores, et cetera. That it effectively serves as a form of fertilizer that helping other things to grow. And it's the idea, that's where the broken windows theory comes in. Times Square back in the late 80s, early 90s was a nightmare because basically none of the broken windows were being fixed. But in the 90s, starting particularly with Giuliani, actually starting with Dave Dinkins when he hired 6,000 more cops, that you were fixing all those broken windows. You got rid of the drug dealers, got rid of the prostitutes, got rid of the pimps, the three-card Monty games, the card games, and you got rid of the wolf packs. Back in the 90s, you had these packs of young kids coming in, just swarming over the area, robbing and terrorizing people. We've gotten rid of almost all of that. And why? Because it's like taking care of a garden. If you prune it, if you water it, if you take care of it, if you show loving care. SL Green is planning to put a lot of loving care into Times Square.
Wow, I love that analogy. You have some really good analogies.
Makes a good slogan, loving care for Times Square.
I love that.
Well, the issue is the vast majority of the public, rich, poor, black, white, Asian, Latino, want to feel safe. And as it relates to the police, they just worry about the police being too overbearing. You talked earlier about the stop, question, frisk controversy we had. And we've come a long way from that as far as with the training. The NYPD now is a minority-majority police department. That young police officer that was killed 2 weeks ago from Bangladesh, the NYPD, next to Dominicans, the largest number of recruits in the class that just graduated at Times Square were from Bangladesh. So the concern about the department being racist, being homophobic, now has 25% females. It is a department that looks like New York City, that all the traffic agents, I think like 50% of the traffic agents are from Bangladesh.
Wow.
Why? Because they come, they bring their family, and they encourage their sons and wives and daughters to join the organization. So some of the fear of police will be lessened over time as the department becomes more like New York City itself.
Wow. I didn't know that.
No, so it's
The
a
demographics.
and it's some. So even as you when you look at police today, as you move around the city, whether in the cars or take a look at them. They're quite a mix. Quite a
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah. That's like our public officials too, is a mix.
Well, you got basically you have a Muslim immigrant who is the lead candidate for mayor right now.
Uh-huh.
In terms of go figure, who would have thought that? And so we'll just have to wait and see. Well, for that matter, Eric Adams, the second black mayor after Dave Dinkins.
Yeah.
Dave Dinkins, when he was elected in 89, 90, that, it was much the same as when Obama was elected president.
Yeah.
The world changed. It evolves. It moves forward.
Yeah. And it sounds like I could imagine that there's a lot of behind the scenes conversations that have to happen because policing and public safety shouldn't be a political item. Like you said, everyone wants to feel
But
safe.
it's unfortunate that in our democracy, we're the centerpiece of holding that democracy together. And, the good news is where we are now versus where we were when I came into the business, 1970. It is night and day, but it's a journey. We haven't arrived at a destination. Probably never get to a destination because it's always changing.
Uh-huh.
But that's some of the fun and excitement of it. Look at the career that you're involved in. 10 years ago, you wouldn't be sitting in that chair.
Right.
Because this didn't exist.
Right.
Podcasts, who the hell ever heard on the podcasts, the cloud, digital, internet for that matter, prior to 1995. Who the hell ever heard of the internet?
Right, exactly. And what about when it comes to safety and security and explaining these things to people? Because are there internet hackers that we have to worry about that are, listening in on exactly your plans?
Well, what you're raising right now, if you think of a constant throughout history, and let's just talk modern times, last 50, 100 years, a constant is this desire for safety. That safety, whether it's from physical harm, safety now in the digital world from ransomware, from all the concerns about the
Salt typhoons.
what do they call that stuff about using digital imaging to shame people? There's so many new issues that have to be addressed by the criminal justice people, police, et cetera. It's what makes it so interesting and exciting. It's just every day there's something new to deal with.
Wow. And then when government comes into the mix, sometimes that slows up these processes
Slows
when it
it
comes
up,
to
so it
modernizing,
accelerates it,
especially.
screws it up. Government's pretty good at screwing things up from time to time.
And just really quick, your business right now, ever since coming out of public service, you have this business where you serve as a consultant, taking all your years of experience to help with private sector projects. That's correct?
The business I'm involved in is the company I work for and with is called Teneo. It's the Greek or Latin term for to hold close. So we hold our clients close. But our clients are primarily in the private sector, the CEO, C-suite world. And we have 5 divisions. I head up the risk division, and we deal with all the things that you think of, both in terms of physical security, all the threats now from digital, AI, and that world is changing constantly. But Teneo is when I joined the company, I think we had 600 employees. I think we're up over 2,200 now. We have offices around the world. This year we'll do about $750 million in business. And it's an exciting place to work. Why? Because the world that we're supporting, the world we're consulting with, the world we're surfacing is so constantly changing. And just in the now 10 years I've been with the company, almost 10 years, just think of all the changes that have occurred in the last 10 years. AI. 5 years ago, nobody ever heard of AI. What we're doing sitting here, podcasts. How long have they been around for?
Right.
And then all the security issues, identity theft, ransomware. It is a fascinating world to be involved in. And Teneo is basically one of the leading advisory companies. I'm proud to be a member of the executive staff of the company. And as a kid growing up in Dorchester in a cold water flat, the idea that I have an office up on Park Avenue across the street from the Waldorf, life is pretty good.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you for sharing your time with us and for explaining the
Nice
trajectory.
to be with you.
Yes, thank you.
A good conversation.